Hi everyone, welcome back. So, in this video, we are actually going to go through the process of division of polynomials, and the way that we're going to do it is through long division. Now, if you've never seen long division before, if you've never sort of done it, don't worry, because you don't need to know how to do it, because I'm going to show you how to do it, for polynomials at least. If you want to go learn how to do it for just numbers in general, you can go search that on the internet. There's plenty of websites and tutorials telling you how to do that. We're just going to focus on just polynomials here. There is another way to do this. It's called synthetic division, which is kind of related to long division. You might already know about synthetic division. Again, if you don't worry about it. You can use the process that we've got here. Sometimes synthetic division can be a bit quicker, but we're not going to go through that in this video. Okay, if you want to learn about synthetic division, again, just go onto the internet, type it in, and it will be there. All right. You can also, of course, do this by short division. There are lots of ways to do this polynomial division stuff. I'm just going to show you one way, and you can focus on just that way if that's easier for you. Okay. So let's get to it. So the long division process. There's basically 4 steps, and you just keep repeating these 4 steps until you can't do step 4 anymore. These 4 steps, kind of easy to remember, but you need to practice it a lot to get the process down. Okay, so step 1 is divide. Step 2 is multiply. Step 3 subtract. Step 4 is what I call bring down. Okay, now those are kind of cryptic because it just divide what, multiply what, subtract what. I don't want to give you long explanations of these steps in words, because I find it's easier just to remember these 4 sort of simple phrases to help you get through this long division process. So I'm just going to jump straight into some questions, and I'll show you what each of these steps mean as we go through the questions. Okay, and then it's your job to practice doing long division from your textbook or whatever. Okay. Excuse me. Okay, so divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, and we're going to keep doing this process until we can't do it anymore, and then we stop, and that's your answer. So let's do this division. X cubed plus x squared minus 14, that should be an x in here, minus 24, and we're going to divide that by x plus 2. So the way that we set this up is we're going to write it out like this. We're going to write out our dividend, so 3x cubed plus x squared minus 14x minus 24. And we're going to use this line like that. Kind of almost looks like a square root, but it's not. And we're going to write our divisor, x plus 2, out the front here. Okay, so that's how you set up. Make sure you leave a bit of space at the top, because that's where you're going to be writing your answer. All right, so let's just quickly write down the steps on the side here. So divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. Okay, that's just going to help you remember as we do this problem. I'm not going to write that out every time. But let's do the first step. So divide. What does that mean? What do we divide here? Okay, so once you've written it out like this, you take the first term in your dividend, so the first term underneath this line, which is the x cubed, and you divide this term by the first term in your divisor, which is this x. Okay, so we're going to do x cubed divided by x. That's what the divide step is. Okay, we're only doing one term divided by one term in this step. X cubed divided by x, well, if you know your index laws, that's going to give you x squared. Okay, and you write that answer to this step on top. Make sure you keep things in line as we go through this question. Okay, you might like to follow along in your own book, just making sure that your layout is exactly the same as what I've got here. So if you haven't started that, pause the video, start writing this out in your own book and follow along. Okay, so that's the first step. That's all it is. Okay, divide the first term in your dividend by the first term in your divisor. write your answer on top, keeping things in line. Second step, multiply. What do we multiply? Well, you take the answer you just wrote down, x squared, and now you multiply that term by the entire divisor. So we're going to do x squared times x plus 2. And we're going to write the answer to this underneath the terms in our dividend. And we're going to line up terms that have the same powers. Okay, so we're going to do x squared times x first. X squared times x, well, that's the reverse of x cubed divided by x. So we should just get x cubed back. Okay, I'm going to write them down underneath each other. Then you do x squared times 2. So what we're doing is we're multiplying that with x and that with 2. X squared times 2 is just 2x squared. Like that. Okay, that's the multiply step. Okay, so multiply the answer you just wrote down with all the terms in your divisor. And write down those answers underneath the corresponding terms in your dividend. Step 3 is now subtract. So what we're going to do is subtract these terms that we just wrote down here from the terms just above them. And the way that I like to do it is I like to put these terms we just wrote down in brackets, put a minus sign at the front, and it makes it very clear that you are subtracting each of the terms, not just subtracting the first term. That's a very common mistake people make. They do x cubed minus x cubed, but then they do x squared plus 2x squared. They forget about subtracting things. Okay, so make sure you subtract each of these terms. If we do that, we get x cubed minus x cubed. What's that? Well, you're subtracting the same thing from itself, so you end up with 0. It cancels out. Okay, and that should always happen, at least for that first term that you subtract there. Then you do x squared minus 2x squared. X squared minus 2x squared is negative x squared. Okay, 1 minus 2 is negative 1. And that's it. That's the subtract step done. Okay. Step number 4 is bring down. Okay, what I mean by bring down is you go to the next term in line in your divisor that is sort of in a blank space. So that would be the negative 14x here. We're going to bring it down. We're going to write it next to the terms that we just wrote down, so everything's in line again. Okay. So that's what we mean by bring down. You don't have to do it for all the terms. You can if you want to. You can just do it for the next one though. So we're up to negative 14x, we bring it down. And then we repeat. We just do everything again. Okay? Starting from this line. Alright, so ignore the 0 because it's just 0. There's technically nothing there. So you can rub that out if you like. And we start again. So step 1 is divide. So what we're going to do is divide just the first term that we've got here, which is this minus x squared. We're going to divide that by the first term in our divisor, which is x. So negative x squared divided by x gives you minus x. Okay, so that's divide. That step's done. Now we do step 2, multiply. If you remember from before, multiply means take the answer you just wrote down, so in this case just the minus x, and we're going to multiply that by each of the terms in our divisor. So negative x, that's a bit unclear, I'll rub those lines out. Okay, so negative x times x is just negative x squared. And remember, you write them down underneath the corresponding terms. Okay. And then negative x times 2 is minus 2x. There we go. That's the multiply step done. Step 3 is subtract. So we subtract the terms we just wrote down here from the terms just above them. I like to put them in brackets and a minus sign at the front. And then you subtract corresponding terms. So negative x squared minus negative x squared. That's the same thing as negative x squared plus x squared. You end up with 0. Okay, they cancel out. Negative 14x minus negative 2x is the same as negative 14x plus 2x. So we end up with minus 12x. Okay, that's our subtract step done. Finally, step 4 is bring down the next term in line. So the next term in line is minus 24. We're going to bring it down. We're going to write it in line with what we're up to. Okay? And we repeat one more time. So divide. Remember, you just divide the first term. Ignore the 0. Here the first term is minus 12x. We're going to divide negative 12x by x. Okay, negative 12x divided by x is negative 12. Step 1 is done. Step 2, multiply. So we multiply what we just wrote down, the negative 12, by x plus 2. So negative 12 times x is negative 12x. Remember to write it underneath. And negative 12 times 2 is negative 24. Again, writing them underneath. That's step 2 done. Step 3, subtract. So put them in brackets and subtract from the terms just above them. So negative 12x minus negative 12x, so negative 12x plus 12x, you end up with 0. You cancel out. Notice every time that I subtract, the first term from my subtraction step always results in a 0. Okay? That should happen every time. If that doesn't happen every time, something's gone wrong. You need to go back and fix your mistakes. Okay? But the second subtraction that you perform in that step, that won't necessarily be 0. Okay? It might be 0, might not be. So we get minus 24 minus 24. Okay? That just ends up with 0. They cancel out as well. At this point we're done because we can't bring down any more terms. There's nothing left for us to bring down. So you stop. This is the end of your division. And now you can write your answer. So your answer is basically what you've got up here plus any remainders that you have. Now the remainder would be any number that you end up with at the bottom here. Okay, in this case we have no remainder. Okay, because we end up with 0 right at the end. So in this case we don't have to do anything. Our answer just is x squared plus x squared minus x minus 12. That is the answer to this division. Okay, and there is no remainder. There we go. That's the long division process. Okay, so it's just the 4 steps repeating over and over, and you just got to make sure that you're writing things in line properly, you're subtracting things properly when you need to. All right, as long as you're careful and do things kind of neatly, you shouldn't run into too many problems. Okay, the process is a little bit long and tedious, but it's not really that complicated. Okay, if you just do one step at a time, there's no reason why you can't get a nice answer at the end. Okay. All right, let's do another one. And in this example, I'm going to spoil it for you. We'll get a remainder. Okay, and then we'll show you how to write the answer with the remainder in it as well. Okay, so we're going to divide 3x cubed plus x minus 3 by x minus 2. Now notice in our dividend we seem to be missing a term. Okay, we don't have an x squared term. All right. Now when this happens, when you appear to be missing a term, you need to write that term down in your division setup. Okay. You just write it with a coefficient of 0 though. Okay, so really we've got 3x cubed plus 0x squared plus x minus 3. Okay, the 0x squared just means it's technically not there, but we still need it in our division process for things to work out properly. So when I write it down, I'll do 3x cubed plus 0x squared plus x minus 3, and we're dividing this by x minus 2. Okay, so make sure you include any missing terms that you need to, and make sure that your terms are decreasing by powers of x. Okay, that's also really important. If you haven't noticed that by now, that's usually how we do things with polynomials. All right, let's do this. I'm going to go through it a bit quickly, and hopefully if you can keep up. If you can't, just keep pausing and make sure you understand each step as we go through it. If you've already got the process down, that's great. You can stop watching this video because the rest of it's just examples. Okay, it's going to be kind of a long video. So if at some point you feel like you understand what's going on, great. Get out of the video and go do your work. Otherwise, you can just keep watching. We'll do a few more examples after this. All right, so first step is divide. So we're going to divide this 3x cubed by x. And you should get 3x squared. Okay, why? Because 3x cubed divided by x. Okay, index laws. Okay, 3 divided by 1 is just 3, so the 3 still stays there. X to the power of 3 divided by x to the power of 1. Our index law says we subtract powers, so we get x to the power of 2. Okay, so maybe if you're sort of struggling with that, go and review your index laws. And hopefully you can remember how to do that stuff. Okay, so that's our first step, divide. Second step is multiply. So I'm going to multiply 3x squared by x minus 2. So 3x squared times x is 3x cubed. 3x squared times negative 2 is minus 6x squared. Next step, subtract. So we're going to subtract those terms we just wrote down from the terms just above them. 3x cubed minus 3x cubed is 0. Okay, that should always be 0. The next one, though, probably won't be 0. So we get 0x squared minus negative 6x squared. Minus negative 6x squared is like plus 6x squared, so we get plus 6x squared. Okay, and the fourth step is bring down, so we bring down the next term, which is plus x. Okay, repeat. So divide 6x squared by x, and you should get 6x. Multiply 6x by x minus 2. 6x times x is 6x squared, and 6x times negative 2 is minus 12x. Next step is subtract. So we do 6x squared minus 6x squared, cancels out, 0, as it should be. And we get x minus negative 12x, which is x plus 12x, which is 13x. Okay. Fourth step is bring down, get minus 3. All right, repeat one last time. So divide 13x by x, we get plus 13. Multiply 13 by x, we get 13x, and multiply 13 by negative 2, get minus 26. Subtract, get 13x minus 13x, 0. Negative 3 minus negative 26 is the same as negative 3 plus 26, so we end up getting positive 23. Right, at this point we stop because there's nothing left for us to bring down. So our division is complete. And notice that we've got a number at the end. It's not 0. Okay, so this indicates that we have a remainder. Okay, we have a remainder of 23. So to write this within the answer that you've got up here, you just have to add an extra term, which is going to be your remainder, 23, divided by the divisor x minus 2. Okay, that needs to be part of your answer. Okay, that's your leftovers. All right, so that's what happens when you have a remainder. You just write that little bit at the end. Otherwise, your answer is already written up the top here. If there is no remainder, you don't do anything. You just leave it and move on. Okay, there we go. So again, you can see that process is just divide, multiply, subtract, bring down, repeat it over and over until you can't do it anymore. That's it. Okay, it's nothing to it. You just got to practice. Let's do another example. So, write it out. 2x cubed minus 14x squared plus 23x plus 4. I don't like how that 3 looks. And we're going to divide that by x minus 4. Okay, let's do it. So I'm going to move through it quickly now. Okay, this speed is what you should be doing at when you are proficient, when you're confident in what you're doing. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly talk through it, do the steps, and if you're sort of struggling, just pause it every now and then to make sure you know what's going on. Okay, so 2x cubed divided by x, 2x squared. Multiply, so you get 2x cubed minus 8x squared. Subtract 0, negative 14 minus negative 8, negative 14 plus 8 is negative 6x squared. Bring down. Okay, and we start again. So divide negative 6x squared by x minus 6x. Multiply. Negative 6x squared, negative 6 times negative 4 is 24, so plus 24x. Subtract. Negative 6x squared minus negative 6x squared, cancel 0. 23 minus 24 is negative 1, so negative x. Bring down, plus 4, and repeat. So negative x divided by x minus 1. Multiply. Negative 1 times x is minus x. Negative 1 times negative 4 is plus 4. Subtract. Negative x minus negative x cancels 0. 4 minus 4 also cancels 0. We stop. There's nothing left to bring down. Our answer is 2x squared minus 6x minus 1. We have 0 remainder. Okay. There we go. So that's kind of quick. All right. That's like if you're proficient at what's going on. Okay. Last one. Let's do it. So 2x cubed plus 6x squared. Now notice we've got the x term missing, so we have to include that when we write out our division. So we just write plus 0x minus 1. And we're dividing this by x minus 1. Okay, let's do it. 2x cubed divided by x, 2x squared, multiply. 2x cubed minus 2x squared, subtract. 0, that'll be plus 8x squared. Bring down. And repeat. So 8x squared divided by x is 8x. 8x times x minus 1 is 8x squared minus 8x. Subtract. Cancel. 0 minus negative 8 is positive 8. Bring down. 8x divided by x is 8. Multiply. 8 times x minus 1 is 8x minus 8. Subtract. Cancel. 0. Negative 1 minus negative 8 is negative 1 plus 8, which is positive 7. So we end up with a remainder of positive 7. And so we write plus 7 over x minus 1 in our final answer. Okay, so finally our answer is 2x squared plus 8x plus 8 plus this little remainder bit, which is 7 over x minus 1. There we go. Long division process. You can see the steps are always the same as long as you keep everything lined up and you can subtract things pretty much. Then it's not too bad. Okay. Don't rush through it. Okay. I'm doing it quickly because I know what I'm doing. If you know what you're doing, you can do it quickly as well. But for the first baby steps, if you've never seen this before, just do it slowly. Make sure you line everything up. Make sure you're dividing things properly, multiplying things properly, subtracting things properly, and just work through it. Okay? Get used to the process, get used to the steps, and eventually you'll become quicker and quicker. Unfortunately, it does take a long time for some questions. Okay? All right. Now, just as a final remark, okay, if you go back and you look at the answers that we've got, okay, in every division problem, we started with a polynomial of degree 3. We divided it by a polynomial of degree 1. Okay, technically that's got a power of 1. And our answer has a degree of 2. Okay, and you notice 3 minus 1 gives you 2. That's true for every one of these divisions that we've performed. Okay, so what we can say is that in general, okay, we haven't gone through a multitude of questions where your degrees are different, but in general, if P of x has a degree n and Q of x has a degree m, then P of x divided by Q of x has a degree of n minus m. Okay, so let's say you do a polynomial of x to the 5 plus blah 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 divided by a polynomial x squared plus blah 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 blah. The answer that you get will have a degree of 5 minus 2, which is x to the power of 3. Okay, and so long as that the dividend, the thing that you are dividing, has a degree that is greater than the divisor, the thing you're dividing with, then this is going to be true. You're going to be able to find some kind of answer at the end. Okay, and this is helpful because it allows us to find eventually intercepts of polynomials, x-intercepts of polynomials. Okay, and we're going to sort of explore that in the next video a little bit. Not in terms of intercepts, but just in terms of what the answers are telling us about our polynomials. Okay, so we'll stop there. Yes, it was a long video, but hopefully now you understand the process of long division in terms of polynomials. And again, if you were struggling with any of the steps, I just ask you to go back, look at the video, start with the first example, make sure you understand what's going on, and then just go and do practice questions from your book. Okay, the more you do this process, the more familiar you'll get with it and the easier it will become. Okay, so we'll stop there and I'll see you next time.